Welcome to the Angular Data Grid component tutorial. In this video, I will show you how to enable editing, use different cell edit types, and customize the cell edit template in the Data Grid. You will also see the different modes. First, I will open an existing Angular application. If you want to learn how to get started with the Angular Data Grid, check out the video linked in the card or description. What you now see is the output of the starter code. Here, I have loaded the data from the local data source file and displayed only the selected columns in the data grid. To enable editing, I import the edit service and toolbar service from the Syncfusion Angular Grids package. I imported the toolbar service so that the built-in toolbar actions add, edit, delete, update, and cancel can be used in the grid. I also import edit settings model and toolbar items from the grid package. Next, I inject the edit service and toolbar service into the provider's array. In the export class, I define public variables such as edit settings of edit settings model type and toolbar of toolbar items type. In the ng-on-init method, I assign values to these variables by setting editing options to allow editing, allow adding, and allow deleting to true, and toolbar items to add, edit, delete, update, and cancel. In the app HTML file, I bind the edit settings property with the edit settings variable and toolbar property with the toolbar variable. After this, I need to define the primary key column, since the editing functionality requires a unique identifier for each row. To do that, I set the isPrimaryKey property to true on the order ID column. Now, the grid is enabled with editing actions, along with toolbar buttons like Add, Edit, Delete, Update, and Cancel, allowing you to double-click any row to edit it, or use the toolbar, where you can add new records using the Add button, and click on the Update button to include the row with the added details. Edit existing records using the Edit button, and delete records using the Delete button. Let me enable data validation for the grid columns. Validation ensures that the values entered by the user meet specific rules before the record is saved. Here, to add validation for the customer ID column, in the export class, I define a public variable customer ID rules. And in the ng-on-it function for customer ID rules, I set the required property to true and the minimum length property to 3. Then, in the app HTML file, I assign validation rules property to customer ID rules. Now, when I edit the customer ID row and try to save it without entering a customer ID or with fewer than 3 characters, the grid displays an error message and prevents the record from being saved. You can also add custom validation for a grid column. When I edit a record in the grid, notice that only text boxes are enabled across all the cells, even those with numeric values. Next, I will show you how to display appropriate controls for each column by using different cell edit types. By default, the grid supports cell edit types such as numeric TextBox, dropdown list, checkbox, date picker, and datetime picker. You can also add your own component to the cell edit type. The cell edit type can be changed using the edit type property of each column directive. I move to the code section and start editing the column. In the freight column, I set the edit type to numeric edit, order date to date picker edit, and drop-down list for ship country column. Look here, when editing the grid, you will get the numeric text box for freight, date picker for order date, and drop-down list for ship country column. Next, to add a custom component to the cell edit option, I will use a Masked TextBox in a column. I will add an additional column called customer number for better understanding, as the Masked TextBox component is present in the Syncfusion Angular Inputs package. I install it using the command npm install at syncfusion/ej2angular-inputs -- save. In the app.ts file, I import the Masked TextBox module component from the Syncfusion ej2angular-inputs package and inject it into the imports array. In the data source file, I add the column data type for all columns, and in the app.ts file, import it from the data source file. In the export class, I define a public variable as order data and assign it as an object and type as any. Next, I add the action begin handler. Here, I pass an argument named args, and its type is save event args. So, I import save event args from the grid package. In the export class, I use this args parameter with the save event args type and add the conditional code needed to edit the customer number column. The action begin event is used to update the edited value in the grid when the update button is clicked. In the app HTML file, I add ng template and the Masked TextBox component for customer number column. To know more about the Masked TextBox, visit our documentation page. Here I bind the action begin event to the action begin handler. Now, if you edit the customer number cell, you will see the Masked TextBox being displayed. Next, moving on to the different editing modes in the grid component. The default mode is normal, which lets you edit the selected row in line. Batch mode allows you to edit multiple rows before saving them together. In dialog mode, you can edit a row's data through a dedicated modal dialog window that helps focus attention on the editing form. For more information on editing modes, refer to the documentation. You can enable this by setting the mode property to batch in edit settings. Now you can edit multiple records at a time. See, the changes are shown as batch edits, and when I click Update, all the records are saved together. To enable dialog mode, I change the edit settings mode to dialog. I am removing the update and cancel toolbar items as the dialog will have those save and cancel buttons by default. So when editing a record, the dialog will pop up for editing. Let's wrap up this video. In this video, you learned how to enable editing in the Angular Data Grid, configure toolbar actions, and apply both built-in and custom validation rules for your grid columns. You also saw the different cell editing types, how to enhance editing by integrating a custom component using Masked TextBox, and the editing modes. If you want to try out the example used in this video, download it from the GitHub link in the description below. I have also shared a link to learn how to obtain a free license key to use our Angular components through our community license if you are eligible. Thanks for watching this video. If you find this video helpful, like and subscribe to our channel.